What's up everyone, Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick and I have an album review for you. So yet another one that came out on the 19th of November was the newest offering from Obscura, a Valediction. This comes out on Nuclear Blast Records, like a lot of stuff this week apparently. This is actually their first record with Nuclear Blast. They were on Relapse for a long time. This band formed in 2002 in Germany. This is their sixth full length. And this one is kind of important in terms of the history of the band. In 2020, after the album Diluvium, which came out in 2018, I believe that was on my year-end list, and fantastic album. Stefan Kermerer, I always screw up his name, that might be it. He essentially retooled the lineup, and essentially everyone that was on that album is no longer with Obscura, and he brought back some old familiar faces as well as one new face. Jaron Paul Thesseling returns on bass, and Supreme Axe wielder, ex-Necrophagist guitarist, current Alkaloid guitarist Christian Munzer returns on guitars, and well, he and Stefan were a hell of a pair back in the day, and it is really good to see him return especially. And they introduced new drummer Dave Diepold of the band Cognizance on drums. So kind of a fresh lineup, but kind of not, like some old faces in there, and I was really excited for this one. I love pretty much all of their albums. In terms of tech death, progressive death metal, I think they are a top tier band, and I was eager to hear what they do now they had this retooled lineup. And the singles they released were all vastly different, and that is kind of the feel on here. This album checks off a lot of boxes in terms of like progressive death metal, melodic death metal, old school death metal, death thrash, tech death. There's even some moments that kind of scream just thrash metal and heavy metal on here. This is essentially a giant sampler platter of various kinds of death metal, and man, do they just go from one style to the next. The first two tracks could not be any more different. Forsaken opens up with a nice, moody, somber, acoustic sort of intro, and then goes into full-bore, neoclassical, progressive death metal. Just everyone showing off the proficiency at every instrument on here. One thing that I always love about Obscura is the fretless bass, and Thesseling does an incredible job. Just these wonderful melodic little sliding notes that are kind of always in the background, but they're always adding something to the melody. And then Munzer and Kermer just going back and forth, just showing off that, yes, they're incredible guitarists constantly, but a lot of it is really centered along the neoclassical play and a lot of shredding. So if you're a giant fan of John Petrucci and like Dream Theater and stuff like that, man, are you in for a treat. And then Solaris is like a lost Necrophagist song. It is just a technical blitz. It's way more harsh, way more just aggressive, but the riffs are super angular. The drum work is fucking insane. Dave Diepold does an incredible job on here. And again, that interesting contrast, which contrast becomes kind of a big thing on here between tracks, because again, they kind of just show off that they can do various styles of death metal all over this release. When it gets down to tracks like The Beyond, which wasn't a tribute to the movie, a little disappointed there, and When Stars Collide, which thankfully didn't sound anything like When Worlds Collide, you hear a lot more of the melodic death metal influence. In fact, When Stars Collide actually has Bjorn Speed Strid from Soilwork on there, throwing in some really catchy vocals. Now, this was kind of an issue with production though, because I thought the vocals always seemed like they were in the back of the mix, and often they kind of got overshadowed by all the playing, which generally the vocals aren't what you're going to Obscura for anyway, so I kind of get that, but at least with Speed, it seemed like they should have been a little bit more out front and just kind of let the melodies, you know, carry behind them versus, you know, the music being way more out front. But minor production gripe there, because the production here is really good. It feels less compressed than Diluvium, or Diluvium, however you say that, and a little bit more organic, and God, it's just mixed super well. You can really hear all the instrumentation, every different level of it, and it really accentuates what they do well, which is that really good balance of really riffy, cool songwriting that isn't necessarily all wankery, and then wankery. But they do wankery so damn well. It's just loads and loads of solos. I think the first track alone has 3 long lead breaks, and they're all fucking gorgeous. I don't mind as long as the quality is still there in terms of all the, you know, showboating, because Again, this band knows how to craft a balance there in terms of what they do. It doesn't feel like it's overboard at all times. Yes, there are a lot of leads and a lot of solos, but they all contribute well to the songs, and in between there, you're getting really cool riffs, really good songwriting, and loads of dynamics. And I think the dynamics are really on display when they're doing more prog-oriented stuff, namely in Unity and Adversity, which might be a two-part thing. I don't know. I really didn't notice they both began with in until right now. Either way, both of those songs kind of take you on a fun sort of adventure, especially in Adversity. In Adversity might be the most fun track on there. It was the first time I really noticed some distinct tremolo riffs, which tremolo riffing, surprisingly, isn't a huge thing on here. But in between the tremolo riffs, you have these kind of classic heavy metal accents that kind of just add a little bit of fun. And, you know, they kind of pepper in a fair amount of major chords to make that song fun. And then in Unity is just really all over the place in terms of like just the shifting moods throughout the entire song. You get really cool epic buildups in that song, and then towards the end it kind of gets a little bit more sinister and dark. But when it comes down to sinister and dark, no song holds a candle to the giant death metal shift on Devoured Usurper. Holy shit, that sounds like a lost Morbid Angel track. It literally sounds like something that was, well, should have been on Gateways to Annihilation. It has that kind of Steve Tucker sort of death metal feel. Like, it really feels like a Gateways song. And it could not be any more different than literally every song on this album. The riffs are thicker, chunkier, the mood is dark and foreboding, even though the solo is maybe a little too melodic for at least a Morbid Angel song. Not that Trey couldn't do melody, it's just he didn't do melody that often. He liked the dissonant weird shit. That would have fit a little bit better, but the fact that the vocals got much lower, Stefan is just really bringing in a low vocal that honestly, again, does not show up on the rest of the album. And that was kind of like an issue here where they did this so damn well, and it really does kind of feel like a tribute to Morbid Angel specifically, but they did it so well, and they did not repeat anything like this song on the entire album. And that was kind of the thing with this. Like, it kind of feels like a sampler platter. Like, you know, you're being offered all these fucking cool things, but just small doses. And at some point, you kind of want bigger doses. Now, of course, they still have their token sound on there, and it's a great sound. But I kind of liked the other stuff that they were doing. But at the same time, I was kind of running into the whole thing that this album doesn't feel as unified as past releases. It just feels like, you know, kind of them showing off, like, yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we can do that too. And they can. They're really fucking good. So it's not necessarily a huge problem, but it is kind of a thing when it comes down to the overall feel of the album. And there were a few tracks that weren't as good as others, but I wouldn't say they were bad at all. The title track, I really like the song. It kind of feels like a more technical Children of Bodom in spots, but there's this weird sort of droning synth in the background, and for some odd reason, I don't know, it just felt weird. Like, it came through the mix very oddly, and I don't know, I just wasn't feeling that. It kind of took me out of the song. And then the Neromancer is a really interesting song. It has a lot of cool, distinct moments on it, namely the tapping bridge, which just is absolutely gorgeous. It has this big, like, sort of neoclassical bridge. It's just awesome. But the rest of the song is just kind of standard fare at that point. Like, you've pretty much heard everything else in that song and other songs, and debatably they might have done it better there. But again, I don't think any of the songs in here are bad. In fact, I think this really just showcases some incredible writing. And I have to say, I really, really enjoyed the instrumental Orbital Elements 2. They did a sequel to the awesome instrumental that was on Cosmogenesis, which Cosmogenesis was the first Obscura album I ever picked up, and holy shit, I was blown away. And this is a worthy sequel. And sequels are kind of like a dangerous thing. It's like, well, we can just make it bigger and dumber and Michael Bay it the fuck up. Or we pay true homage to the original and just sort of expand on it, and that is what they did. There are a lot of cool dynamics in there again. Lots of great lead trade-offs. And it has the thing that I like about instrumentals. It isn't structured to have vocals necessarily. It is just meant to carry these cool moments, and the transitions pretty much across the board are buttery smooth. So this is a very enjoyable listen, and it flows really well, and at over 50 minutes, it didn't drag. And that's kind of a cool thing with Obscura. They know how to kind of balance out, again, the flash and the riffs and the songwriting and musicality. They have a solid formula, and they're really good about making sure it doesn't drag. A lot of this is very foot on the gas style of progressive death metal / tech death. I mean, blast beats aplenty, but used to get, you know, moments of groove, lots of melody, interesting vocal hooks, and again, this weird sort of sampler platter sort of sound. It does kind of hurt the uniformity of the album, but overall, it's a killer listen, and I'm going to give it 4 stars. I think this is a really awesome listen. I don't know. I really like Diluvium, but I don't know. There's a lot of stuff on here that I like more in terms of just the songwriting and how much the songs really stand apart from each other. But that also is kind of the thing where it does feel like a sampler platter, and they're pretty much just doing a wide array of different styles, because literally you get everything on here. You get like thrash metal, death metal, melodic death metal, tech death, progressive death metal, old school death metal. Devoured Usurper is probably my favorite song on there, but again, it's the one that sounds the least like Obscura, but Obscura fucking nailed it. So I don't know. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on this album, but I would say it's pretty much all good. And if you're a diehard Obscura fan, get ready. This is gonna fucking melt your eardrums. And if you are a lead guitar nut, these guys are flat out incredible. And I mean, most people already know that, but if you didn't know that, holy shit, they're incredible. Strongly recommend picking this one up. If you ever slept on this band for a second, this would not be a bad place to start. So go out, get that shit. So if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there will be a link down below. We also have shirts available. If you would like one, hit us up on thrallsofmetal@gmail.com. Send us a message, put shirts in it, and we will get back to you and hopefully sell you a shirt. We are eventually going to restock and kind of broaden out the different Thralls swag. So if you have suggestions in terms of like Thralls branding that you guys would like, let us know. Tell us in the comments. Hit us up on Facebook, hit us up on Instagram. Let us know. We are actually curious about your input, because you guys are what keep us going, and we love doing this. And as long as you keep us going, we will keep rolling. So with that, I thank you all once again, and we will catch you later.